PR bombshell heard round Washington today. General Stanley McChrystal profiled in Rolling Stone, ripping President Obama and key members of his national security team.
The article is called The Runaway General, and the name seems to fit. Let's bring in Massachusetts Senator John Kerry. He's chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Kerry, I know we brought you on to talk about energy legislation, but clearly this news overnight, I have to ask you straight up, do you have confidence in General McChrystal that he should still be in command of the war in Afghanistan?
Well, I have confidence in his abilities as a general. I just spoke to him about 20 minutes ago. I think that this is something that has to be decided by the president and his top security team, and they deserve to have a conversation before a lot of us are chiming in from the sidelines. I'm much more concerned about how things are going in Afghanistan and what ingredients may be necessary in order to be successful. I think that's our top priority, and we need to stay focused on it.
Okay, sir, do you think this constitutes insubordination?
It's a kind of, it's certainly a mistake. There's no question that it's poor judgment on the part of both the general and his some of his staff. But I think that the real question is, will it affect his ability to continue to have a relationship with the president and his top staff? That's between them. And I think people need to give this meeting tomorrow the room to take place and not have the normal Washington, 50,000 different opinions sounding off in between now and then. The events in Afghanistan are too serious. The lives of our troops are at stake. The success of our overall policy in the region. I think we need to just be calm today and let this meeting take place between the president and his security team and his top general, and the president will decide.
Senator, I want to read an excerpt from here, and it may shed some light on why General McChrystal called you personally. It says here in this piece, politicians like McCain and Kerry, says another aide, quote, turn up, have a meeting with Karzai, criticize him at the airport press conference, then get back for the Sunday talk shows. Frankly, it's not very helpful. Is it fair to say that General McChrystal called you because of this anecdote?
Well, I'll leave my conversation with General McChrystal between he and I, but I think that first of all, that's an aide. That's someone on his staff. Secondly, it displays a fundamental ignorance about the process and how it works. And that aide may recall that I spent 5 days there in long discussions with President Karzai, which ultimately resulted in him accepting the results of the election, and I think facilitated the ability of General McChrystal and his team to be able to move forward with a legitimate government in place. And there was no airport press conference and no criticism. So I just think it's a very bad taste, but it came from someone on his staff. It did not come from the general. And I think, again, you have to let this conversation take place. Of far greater concern to all of us, we have a hearing this morning in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the subject of Afghanistan, because I think all of us are concerned about the direction of our policy. And I don't want this particular episode, one way or the other, to get in the way of our troops being successful and of our policy being able to be as effective as possible. That's the priority for all of us. And I think we need to make sure that today that's where we stay focused.
And last thing on this issue regarding that point, do you think we could afford to lose a general, any general, at this juncture, this key juncture in the war, if that's what the president decides?
I think, again, the president will make his decision together with the vice president and his national security team based on all of the input. Obviously, it would be costly in some respects, but it might be, something that he judges is essential. I don't know that. That's between the president and his general. And I think that conversation needs to take place. If the president has confidence and the general has confidence in the team that they could proceed forward, what would obviously be in the best interests of our nation, and the effort is to maintain a continuity, providing the president has confidence in that. There's a whole other side to this, not just the general. So it's important for that conversation to take place. What is the top priority here is that we have the best team, the best leadership, and the best confidence possible about our ability to succeed. in a very difficult mission. And
Senator
that
Kerry
is the top priority.
Right. Senator Kerry, I want to keep our word, talk also about energy. The idea of cap and trade, this idea of pricing carbon, is that a non-negotiable in the Senate bill, or could that be set aside? Could there be 90%, if you get 90% of everything else that you guys want in energy, could you set that aside and get a comprehensive energy bill through the Senate?
Well, first of all, our bill does not rely on so-called cap and trade. It's got a very minimal mechanism in there, but it really relies on the pricing of carbon, which comes by setting a target for the reduction of emissions. That's how you price carbon. The fact is that if we don't price carbon, we will create 1/10 of the jobs and we will reduce 1/10 of the emissions. It is effectively only an energy bill. And we've had 10 energy bills since Richard Nixon was president, when he first talked about energy independence. We have not reduced 1 percentage point America's dependence on foreign oil since 9/11. So if we're going to get serious, we have to price carbon. There are many different ways of doing that. I'm not locked into one single way of doing it. And I'm working with a number of colleagues now, Republicans and Democrats alike, to look at alternative ways that we might be able to scale back, provide a smaller chunk of the bite, if you will. What's important is that we begin the process, that we actually begin the pricing of carbon and send a signal to the marketplace. I think there are a number of ways for us to achieve that, and it would be an enormous victory for the environment, for energy independence, for our security, for jobs in our economy, for competitiveness, and for the health of Americans if we did that.
Do you wish the president would put his finger on the scale a little bit more, especially with regard to pricing pollution, to get this thing through?
I think the president has weighed in very heavily. He said very clearly in any number of public speeches that we need to price carbon. The president gave the first Oval Office address on this topic the other day. He said the House has passed a bill. We need to do the same in the Senate. It's very clear what that is. And the president is having a meeting tomorrow, convening Republicans and Democrats alike to find a way forward. So there's no question in my mind that the president is fully committed. He's fully engaged. He intends to try to move votes himself. And he understands the seriousness of this effort.
Senator John Kerry, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, playing point on the energy and climate bill. Thank you for joining us this morning on Daily Rundown.
Thanks, sir.
All right, up next in today's Decision 2010, the past comes back to haunt John McCain's opponent in Arizona. It's a doozy. But first, government in a box. It's our Washington Speak for today, and it comes courtesy of the man, well, in the news. General McChrystal coined the phrase to describe the U.S.-backed Afghanistan administrators and police who set up the civilian government in Marja right after the offensive.
Yeah, government in a box. His notion not exactly working out that well either.
By the way, that's the other part of this story.
Yeah.
Marja, a bleeding ulcer is what General McChrystal used to describe it right now.
Right.
Not successful there, and they're still delayed on Kandahar.
Something that goes beyond personality, which is distracting in that article, but there's a lot of substance, too. All right, if you have some Washington Speak you want us to clarify,